Welcome to today's meditation. I invite you just to get comfortable wherever you are. Just let yourself just really relax into your spot, into your seat, on the couch, on the ground, wherever you are. And as you just kind of go down the parts of the body from the jaw to the shoulders, to the back, to the hips, just begin to relax each part. Almost like you're giving yourself permission to just turn loose of whatever you've held on to today or longer than today. Just really settle in. And as you're doing that, let's just begin to join our breath together. So just take a gentle breath in, as relaxing as you've made the body. Let the breath be. And a gentle breath out. And a gentle breath in. And a gentle breath out. One more together, breathing in and breathing out. And again, just kind of check in from the jaw to the shoulders to the hips to all those spots that tend to cause us a little bit of challenge. Be really intentional about how you let yourself just settle. And so today our inspiration comes from the third Yoga Sutra book, settling in on verse number 13, when it talks about this idea of parinama. And there's been a lot of verses about it up to this point, and we've shared practice together about this idea of parinama, this transformative way of concentrating, of being present, of transcending all the interruptions of life, to truly find stillness. And Patanjali brings us to this verse, this chapter 3, verse 13. And he says, okay, I've taught you to do this with your breath, to concentrate there. I've taught you to do it with your physical body, to notice a spot and concentrate there. I've offered you the practice of even looking out at something, gazing in one spot, and concentrating there, hoping that these practices will help you just to transform, to truly let all the layers of the world go and be this incredible being that you've always known that you could be, getting back to the core of who you have always been. But he says that as you practice these things, as you attempt to concentrate, as you attempt to settle, there's one more key ingredient, and that's our practice tonight. It is the ingredient of integration. Because what you probably notice in your practice is that when you get still and quiet, you learn things about yourself. Maybe things that you had pushed down or buried or even truly just forgotten. The mind is really interesting, and it begins to just show you things. But Patanjali says that if you really want to experience this transcendence, this true shift of being what the world is trying to make you be, and instead being who you've been always meant to be, if you want to shift, then you got to learn to integrate all the parts. All the parts of your story, all the parts that you remember and you don't, all the parts that you are proud of and maybe not. And then there's this beautiful example that he offers that I think will help us to understand, what do all these parts have to do with the whole? Can't we just embrace the whole? Wouldn't that just be the simplest? And he gives us this example of a pot. So think about a potter. There's this beautiful pot that he has created. It can hold many things. Maybe a plant could go in there. Maybe he uses it for cooking, for putting precious things. But there's this beautiful pot. And Patanjali says that if all you see is the pot, you're not seeing the full thing before you. Because this pot is made up of dust. And then that dust with a little water became clay. And with the manipulation of that potter's hands, that clay became that pot that you see. But the dust and the clay and the sculptor's hands are just as much a part as the physical pot in front of you. It'd be so easy for us to look at ourselves right now, internally or externally or both, and say, this is it. This is who I am right now. Face value. This is me. But there are parts of us that are the dust. There are parts of us that are the clay. There's parts of us that represent this metaphor of these hands that have sculpted us over time. That could be your yoga practice. That could be your study of the text. That could be meditation. But there's been all these things happening to create who you are now. And you've got to be able to truly accept them all and integrate them together to see the totality of you. It's not just a pot. There's a story of how it became what it is. And so let's just sit with that and think, I can understand that. It makes sense. And I think I can begin to look at the different parts of my story that have contributed to who I am right now. But then he goes on. Because what we know about a pot that's made out of this ceramic structure is that if we're not careful, something could damage it. That beautiful pot could get a crack in it. And the crack could begin to get bigger and bigger until eventually it doesn't hold water anymore. It doesn't hold the structure of what we need it to be. That plant can't stand in it anymore. So what do? Do we discard the pot? Or do we break the pot apart, begin to hammer the pieces, and turn it back into dust so that we can then add a little more water? And those sculptors' hands can begin to work until that clay, once again, becomes a pot. And so the story goes. And what Patanjali is trying to caution us about is that if we can't fully embrace all the parts of us, when we notice this crack or this thing that maybe we don't like about our story or we don't really like about ourselves, we just discard it. We give it no value. We ignore it. We're ashamed of it. We bury it. But what Patanjali says is if you can allow all those little cracks that you begin to notice about yourself, be like the pot and let your heart be broken open again so that the dust can become the clay. And through the sculpting process of this practice, of your practice on your mat, of your study of these texts, you can become a pot once again, integrating all the parts together. And so our story goes. So just think about that. How often do we look at things at face value, at this pot or this whatever, and we never take the time to really think about all the other pieces that must be integrated for that thing to be? We are no different. We're not just this face value vessel here in this moment. We are the integration of lived experiences, of scars, of milestones, of celebrations, of struggles, of triumphs, of this gentle sculpting. As we learn a little bit about ourselves, we continue to grow. So this idea of parinama, the Sanskrit word for transformation, can only be understood if we can understand integration. All the parts, the dust, the clay, the hands, the pot, the cracks. And so what I'd encourage us each to do is just in this moment of quiet here, think about how much of you accept. How much of you do you apologize for? How much of your voice do you allow to be heard, and how much of your voice do you silence? How much of your story do you embrace, and how much of your story do you shy away from? And let's just see if in this bit of quiet, you sitting with yourself, me sitting with myself, can we begin to integrate and see all the parts? See that the dust has just as much value as the beautiful pot that seems to be the finished product. And that those sculpting hands have created who you are right now. And over time, that will shift a bit. And are you willing to embrace that as well? And so let's just each sit, continuing to breathe, not getting frustrated if a memory comes up or an idea and you don't really want to sit with it and deal with it. Just notice that. Sitting in meditation is not this magical cure where we just accept ourselves, embrace ourselves. It's where we know ourselves so well that we know which parts we need to work a little more on. And over time, we hide them less. We apologize for them less. And we embrace them more. So let's just pause here. Breathe. And notice. Continuing to breathe. Just listen to the repetition of this word in Sanskrit. This word of transformation. And see if as I say it just these few times, if anything is revealed to you. Parts that have transformed, parts you can see that are in process and growing, and parts that might need your attention just a little bit. Parinama. 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 And as we get ready to close our practice today, in your mind's eye and your imagination, see the most beautiful, artistically designed clay pot that you can imagine. If you're a plant person, you might see the most beautiful plant standing up inside of it. If you are someone who serves, maybe you picture that it's this big, almost cauldron filled with soup and things that you can serve and share. If you collect things, maybe you can just imagine it holding all these beautiful treasures that you've found along your way. But just see it. And as you see it, see if you can tell all the parts that brought it to be what it is right there in your mind's eye, just by looking at it. You can't see the dust and the clay on the surface. You can't see the potter's hands. But can you see the integration of all those parts that have made this thing that you can now picture? And then just imagine what the world sees when they look at you. Can they see the dust and the clay and the tender, gentle sculpting of the practice that has created who you are right now? It's hard for the world to see that until we can see it in ourselves. It's hard for the world to embrace and accept us until we can embrace and accept ourselves. So as you picture this beautiful pot, so beautifully crafted and designed, serving this beautiful purpose, this vessel, over the coming days, see if you can translate that into how you see yourself. And as you embrace that view, it will truly begin to change how the world sees you. Parinama, transformation. But the key, Patanjali tells us, is the integration of all the parts. So let's focus on that in the coming days. Get to know yourself better. Embrace it all. The dust, the clay, the sculpting, and this pot of who you are, at least for right now. Namaste.